I've always been told that persistence is the key. You know, the whole idea that if you want something, especially someone, you've got to chase after it. That's how the movies tell it, right? The guy who never gives up eventually wins the girl. But let me tell you something. Reality doesn't work that way. I learned that the hard way. It was a Friday night and I had just gotten home after yet another failed date. I could still feel the sting of her words when she told me politely but firmly that I wasn't her type. I tried to shake it off, but deep down it hurt. I kept replaying the moment in my head, wondering what I could have done differently. Was I too eager? Not confident enough? Did I say something stupid? I remember sitting down on my worn-out couch, scrolling through my phone mindlessly, trying to distract myself. My thoughts were like a broken record, repeating the same self-critical nonsense over and over. Then almost by accident, I stumbled on a podcast episode titled Men Who Chase Women, Diogenes' Warning. The title caught my attention. I didn't know much about Diogenes, but something about the phrase men who chase women felt uncomfortably familiar. Curious, I hit play. The speaker's voice was calm, almost soothing, but his words hit hard. Men have been sold a lie about women. We're told that a man must chase the woman he desires, that persistence is romantic, that orbiting her every move is noble. From fairy tales to Hollywood, the chase is painted as heroic enough. It's time to shatter this illusion. Diogenes of Sinope would laugh at this so-called romance. My first reaction: confusion. I mean, wasn't that how things were supposed to work? You put in the effort, you show her you care, and eventually she sees your worth. That's what I believe. That's what everyone believes. But then the speaker went deeper. He started talking about Diogenes, a philosopher who lived like a stray dog, free from social expectations, unbothered by rejection or failure. Diogenes apparently was a guy who owned almost nothing, just a cloak, a stick, and a bowl. And when he saw a child drinking from cupped hands, he threw his bowl away, saying, "A child has beaten me in plainness of living." I couldn't help but laugh. Who does that? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Diogenes wasn't interested in impressing anyone. He didn't chase approval. In fact, he actively shunned it. That's when it hit me. Maybe I was going about things the wrong way. I paused the podcast and just sat there letting it sink in. I'd spent years thinking that chasing women, being persistent, improving myself was the right thing to do. But what if all that chasing was just a way to cover up my own insecurities? Was I really trying to win someone over? Or was I just afraid of being alone? The idea gnawed at me, and it wasn't a comfortable feeling. Admitting that maybe I'd been wrong this whole time? Yeah, that wasn't easy. I hit play again. The speaker continued talking about how Diogenes would laugh at the modern man desperately seeking validation from women, when the real problem wasn't the rejection, it was the need itself. "Wake up," the speaker said, his voice firm. "No woman's approval will ever make you complete." That line cut deep. I knew it was true. Chasing someone's affection didn't make me stronger or more worthy. It made me dependent, like I couldn't be okay with myself unless someone else validated me. I looked around my small, cluttered apartment. Everything in my life felt like a reflection of that same pattern. Always trying, always chasing, always feeling like I wasn't enough. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. What would it feel like to just stop, to not worry about whether someone liked me or not? To be okay with just being me, even if that meant being alone sometimes. A strange sense of calm washed over me. I wasn't used to that. Usually my mind was racing, replaying every failed attempt to connect. But now it felt quieter. Maybe Diogenes had a point. Freedom didn't mean not caring about anyone. It meant not needing someone else's approval to feel whole. It meant standing on my own 2 feet, comfortable in my own skin, whether someone liked me or not. I opened my journal, the one I usually use to write down goals and plans for self-improvement, and instead I wrote just one sentence. Stop chasing. Start living. I wasn't sure what that would look like just yet, but for the first time, I felt like I was moving in the right direction. Instead of running after something outside myself, I was starting to look inward. That night, I fell asleep with my headphones on the podcast still playing softly. The last thing I heard before drifting off was a quote from Diogenes. "It is the privilege of the gods to want nothing, and of god-like men to want little." Maybe I didn't need to be a god, but I could learn to want less, to chase less, and to live more freely. That's what I needed. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. It wasn't a drastic change, just a small shift in perspective, but it was enough to make me rethink my next move. Instead of texting the girl who didn't call back, I made a plan to go for a walk, clear my head, and figure out what I really wanted. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. A life where I didn't chase but simply chose to be at peace with myself. I wasn't sure where it would lead, but I was ready to find out. I woke up the next morning feeling surprisingly refreshed. The usual weight that sat on my chest like a stone, reminding me of last night's failed date, wasn't there. Instead, I felt something else. Not quite peace, but a kind of lightness I hadn't felt in a while. I made myself some coffee, sat by the window, and thought about the podcast I'd listened to the night before. Diogenes, huh? The guy seemed like a total lunatic living in a barrel, scoffing at social norms, throwing away his own bowl because a child showed him he didn't need it. It all seemed a bit extreme, but there was something about his philosophy that struck a nerve, the way he rejected anything that chained him, the way he didn't just talk about freedom, he lived it. No need for approval, no desire to be liked, he just was unapologetically himself. I thought about how I'd been living, always trying to impress, always chasing some elusive sense of worth. Was I really that desperate for validation? The idea made me a little uncomfortable, maybe more than a little. I decided to put this detachment thing to the test. That night, my buddy Sam invited me to a party. Normally, I'd spend way too long getting ready, picking out clothes, trying to look just right. I'd think about how I'd act, what I'd say to impress someone. Not this time. I threw on a simple shirt, jeans, and headed out the door without overthinking it. No cologne, no rehearsed lines in my head. Just me as I was. When I got there, Sam greeted me with a smirk. "Dude, you look like you just rolled out of bed," I shrugged. "Maybe I did." He laughed, clapping me on the shoulder. "Well, at least you're here. Thought you'd be moping after last night." I didn't bother explaining. Instead, I grabbed a drink and found a spot in the corner. Usually, I'd be scanning the room, trying to spot someone interesting to talk to. Tonight, I just observed. Lisa showed up about half an hour later. I'd met her once before. She was one of those effortlessly cool girls who always seemed to have guys orbiting around her. She spotted me, smiled, and made her way over. "Hey, Alex," she said, leaning against the wall next to me. "You look different tonight." I raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" She tilted her head, studying me. "Usually you're more intense, always trying to make everyone laugh, always putting on a show." "Maybe I just decided to stop performing," I replied, keeping my voice steady. She gave me a curious look, like she wasn't sure whether to be intrigued or confused. "That's interesting," she said finally. I didn't push the conversation. Usually I'd be cracking jokes, trying to impress her. Instead, I just let the silence hang. She didn't walk away. In fact, she stayed right there, occasionally glancing over at me as if trying to figure me out. But then something shifted. I noticed another guy walk up to her. A tall, confident-looking dude who seemed to know her well. They started chatting, and I could feel that familiar knot of jealousy tightening in my stomach. I gritted my teeth, trying to remind myself of what I'd learned. Chasing her wouldn't make me more worthy. Feeling threatened by this guy wouldn't either. Still, it hurt. The old habit of needing to be the center of attention, needing her attention, wasn't going to die easily. I forced myself to stay calm. Instead of interrupting, I just focused on my breathing, keeping my thoughts steady. I knew that the urge to step in wasn't about Lisa. It was about my own insecurities, the fear of being overlooked. Diogenes wouldn't have cared. He wouldn't be caught up in this petty need for recognition. The thought helped me find my balance again. I wasn't going to let this situation define me, so I just nodded at Lisa when she glanced back at me, smiled, and walked away. Sam caught up with me later. "Hey, what's up with you tonight? You're like a different person. Just trying something new." I said, keeping it vague. He gave me a sideways look. "You're not drunk, right?" I laughed. "Nope, just figuring some stuff out." I left the party early, feeling like I'd passed some kind of test. It wasn't about winning Lisa over or competing with that other guy. It was about holding my ground, not letting jealousy take control. It felt good to walk away without needing validation. On the way home, I couldn't help but think about how much energy I'd wasted in the past, always needing to be liked, always chasing someone else's approval. Maybe freedom wasn't just about being alone. Maybe it was about not needing to be the favorite. The chosen one. Back at my place, I wrote in my journal again, "Stop competing, start being." The next morning, I woke up without the usual post-party regret. No overthinking, no replaying conversations in my head, just a sense of calm. I knew I wasn't cured of my old habits yet. Part of me still wanted to text Lisa to see if she noticed my change, but I resisted. If I was going to do this right, it had to come from a place of authenticity, not just another strategy to get someone's attention. Maybe this was the beginning of something real. Maybe for once I was learning to stand on my own. A week passed and I was starting to get comfortable with this new mindset. I wasn't exactly a Stoic sage like Diogenes, but I was beginning to feel more in control, less dependent on what people thought of me. I didn't obsess over texts that went unanswered. I didn't analyze every interaction to see if I'd come off as charming or interesting enough. It felt good. Freeing even, but I wasn't naive. I knew that real change would take more than a few introspective mornings and some newfound philosophies. It would take practice, testing myself in situations that usually brought out the worst in me. Then one Friday night, I got a text from Sam. "Hitting up the pub tonight, are you in?" Part of me wanted to say no to stay home and avoid the whole scene, but I knew that wouldn't help me grow. I needed to put this mindset to the test in the real world, where temptations and old habits would be right in front of me. "Yeah, I'm in," I replied. The pub was buzzing when I arrived. Sam was already there laughing with a group of our usual friends. I noticed Lisa among them. A small pang of tension hit my stomach, but I pushed it down. I was done with chasing, done with trying to impress her or anyone else. I greeted everyone with a casual nod, keeping my energy low and calm. Lisa smiled at me, but I didn't rush to her side or make some half-hearted joke to get her attention. Instead, I found a spot at the bar, ordered a drink, and just watched the room. A couple of minutes later, Lisa joined me. "Hey," she said, leaning on the bar next to me. "Hey," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. She studied me for a second. "You seem different lately." I shrugged. "Maybe I am." She smiled, clearly intrigued. "I like it. You seem more grounded. Just trying to figure some things out," I said. We chatted for a bit, but I made a point not to steer the conversation towards flirting. I didn't overthink my words or worry about impressing her. I just talked. It was refreshing. That's when he showed up, all confident, the kind of guy who seemed to glide through social interactions effortlessly. He greeted Lisa with a casual familiarity, and they started talking like they'd known each other for years. I could feel the tension creeping back. My stomach tightened, and my thoughts started racing. Was this guy someone she liked? Had they dated before? Was I just some filler? Until someone better came along? I forced myself to breathe, reminding myself of Diogenes' words about needing nothing. Freedom meant not letting other people's choices control me. I took a sip of my drink, focusing on the bitter taste to ground myself. Lisa didn't seem overly interested in the guy, but they were definitely chatting more than I liked. I couldn't help it. I wanted to cut in to pull her attention back to me. But what would that accomplish? I'd be right back to where I started, craving validation, giving my power away. I remembered something from that podcast. Freedom isn't just about solitude. It's about not being a slave to your desires. Maybe this was the real test, not about whether Lisa liked me or not, but whether I could be okay with myself regardless. I turned away from them, focusing on the sounds around me, the clinking of glasses, bursts of laughter, the hum of conversation. I wasn't going to make a scene or force her to choose me. I wasn't going to compete. That wasn't who I wanted to be anymore. A little while later, Sam slid up next to me. "You good, man? You've been quiet tonight," he said. "Just thinking," I replied. He followed my gaze to Lisa and the guy. "Oh, you jealous?" Maybe a little, I admitted. He grinned. Go for it, man. Don't let some random dude take your shot. I shook my head. That's the old me. I'm trying something different. Sam looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Since when do you not care about getting the girl? It's not that I don't care. I just don't want to make it my mission. If it happens, it happens. He shrugged. Your call. Just don't overthink it, all right? Yeah, I said. But it was more to myself than to him. When Lisa came back over, I didn't bring up the other guy. I didn't question who he was or why they seemed close. Instead, I just asked her how she'd been lately. We talked about work, life, random stuff. I didn't try to be funny or clever. I just listened. At one point, she looked at me and said, You're different. Usually you're more intense. I smiled. I guess I just realized I don't need to prove anything. She seemed to take that in. That's actually pretty cool. For the first time, I saw her relax around me. It wasn't about me being the center of attention or trying to outdo anyone else. It was just two people talking, no pressure, no agenda. As the night wound down, Lisa left with a group of friends, including the guy from earlier. I didn't chase after her. I didn't text her as soon as I got home. Instead, I just walked back alone, feeling okay. Not triumphant, not bitter, just okay. I knew this wasn't the end of my struggle, but it was a step, a real step towards being the person I wanted to be. Someone who could stand on his own even when things didn't go his way. When I got home, I opened my journal and wrote, Real strength is letting go, not holding on. Maybe I was starting to get it. Maybe, just maybe, I was beginning to understand what it meant to be free. Not just from chasing women, but from the need to be someone else, just to feel worthy. That night, I didn't lose sleep, wondering whether Lisa would text me. I didn't replay the whole night looking for mistakes. I just closed my eyes, feeling like I'd won something more important than anyone's attention. I'd won a small piece of myself back. Over the next few days, I kept thinking about that night at the pub. Part of me wanted to reach out to Lisa to see how she felt about our conversation, or maybe just to hear from her. But something held me back. It wasn't fear of rejection exactly. It was more like I didn't want to ruin that feeling of calm I'd managed to hold on to. A few weeks ago, I would have sent a text without a second thought, analyzing every word before hitting send. Now, I couldn't help but question why I wanted to reach out. Was it because I genuinely wanted to connect? Or was it because I needed to know I hadn't been forgotten? The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wasn't used to not chasing. The quiet felt strange, almost uncomfortable, but it also felt right. Like I was finally letting go of that constant need to be seen, to be validated. I remembered something Diogenes supposedly said. He has the most who is content with the least. Maybe my old mindset, always trying to be the guy everyone noticed, was just a symptom of needing too much. Too much attention, too much reassurance. Maybe real confidence wasn't about getting the girl. It was about being okay whether I did or didn't. One afternoon, while grabbing coffee, I saw Lisa through the cafe window. She was sitting at a corner table typing something on her laptop. My instinct was to avoid her, to keep walking, but that felt cowardly. Diogenes wouldn't have ducked out just to avoid an uncomfortable situation. So I took a breath, pushed the door open, and walked in. She looked up as I approached, a bit surprised, but not unfriendly. Hey, I said. Hey, stranger, she replied with a smile. Haven't seen you in a while. I shrugged. Been laying low. Just working on a few things, she gestured to the seat across from her. You in a hurry? I wasn't, so I sat down. The conversation was easy, more relaxed than before. Maybe it was because I wasn't overthinking every word, I just let things flow. She asked how I'd been, and I kept it simple, told her I was focusing on myself, trying not to overcomplicate things. She nodded, looking thoughtful. That's cool. Honestly, I've been trying to figure some stuff out too, she said. I didn't push for details, I just listened. At some point, the conversation shifted to relationships. She mentioned how she always felt pressured to keep people interested, to be exciting or impressive enough. It caught me off guard. Lisa always seemed effortlessly confident. I guess I just hate the idea of being boring, she admitted. I looked at her, genuinely surprised. You boring? That's hard to imagine, she laughed softly. You'd be surprised. Sometimes I feel like if I'm not constantly entertaining people, they'll lose interest. I realized we weren't so different. We'd both been playing roles, me the eager pursuer and her, the effortlessly charming. We both feared the same thing, being overlooked. I leaned back, considering her words. Maybe we've been looking at it wrong, I said. Maybe it's not about being interesting enough for someone else. Maybe it's about just being okay with ourselves. She looked at me, genuinely listening. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out, she said. For a moment, I wanted to reach across the table to hold her hand, to do something to bridge the gap. But then I remembered forcing things wasn't the answer. Maybe real connection wasn't about pushing or chasing. Maybe it was about being open without expectations. I've been trying to let go of needing to impress people, I admitted. It's harder than I thought. I'm so used to thinking that if I'm not actively trying, then nothing will happen. She nodded. I get that. Sometimes I feel like if I'm not the most interesting person in the room, I'll just disappear. I shook my head. You don't need to be anything other than yourself. That's enough. She smiled, almost relieved. Same to you. In that moment, I realized that all the effort I used to put into trying to make someone notice me, trying to be what I thought they wanted, was never about them. It was about me being afraid of being seen as unworthy. I wasn't chasing women. I was chasing my own sense of value. When our conversation wrapped up, Lisa and I didn't make any plans to meet again. There were no promises or vague suggestions about hanging out later. We just said goodbye, and that was enough. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt good. Not because I'd won her over or made some grand gesture. I felt good because I'd let the moment be what it was. No chasing, no performing, just two people talking. Back at home, I wrote in my journal, "Stop performing, start being." Maybe I wasn't fully there yet, but I could feel the difference. I wasn't holding on so tightly. I wasn't trying to shape myself around someone else's expectations. I was just me. That night, I didn't stay up analyzing the conversation or planning what to say next time. I didn't text her to see if she thought about me afterward. I just let it be. I focused on other things, reading, cooking, a simple dinner, and letting my thoughts drift without clinging to any particular one. The world didn't end because I wasn't chasing someone's approval. In fact, it felt like I was seeing things more clearly, like my own thoughts and feelings finally had room to breathe. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't trying to be someone special. I was just being me, and that was enough. A few days had passed since that unexpected coffee with Lisa. I kept thinking about our conversation, how honest she'd been about feeling the need to constantly entertain people. It surprised me. I'd always seen her as effortlessly confident, but it turned out we were both just playing roles, hoping to be noticed, hoping to be enough. Since then, I'd been focusing on keeping things simple. No overthinking, no obsessing about how I came across to people. It wasn't as easy as it sounded. Sometimes I still felt that itch to text her just to see if I was still on her mind, but I didn't give in. I wasn't going to let my thoughts spiral into that old loop of chasing validation. Instead, I tried something new. I put my phone on airplane mode for a few hours each day. It felt strange at first, like I was disconnecting from the world, but it also felt freeing. No notifications, no pressure to respond to anyone, no endless scrolling to distract myself. Just me, my thoughts in the silence. One evening as I sat on my balcony listening to the distant hum of the city, it hit me. All this time I'd been mistaking attention for connection. I'd always thought that being noticed was the same as being valued, but they weren't the same thing at all. Attention was fleeting and a quick hit that faded as soon as someone else came along. Real connection, though, that came from being present, from showing up without any agenda. I'd been so busy trying to be liked that I never really gave anyone a chance to see who I was. Without the performance, Diogenes would have laughed at me. He'd probably say that seeking attention was just another form of bondage, like needing wealth or fame. True, freedom meant being content with yourself, even when no one else was watching. That night, I didn't bother checking my phone. I didn't wonder if Lisa had thought about me or if she was texting that other guy. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was missing out on something. I was just there at peace with the quiet. The next morning, I woke up feeling good until I checked my phone. There was a message from Sam dude, Lisa's going out with that tall guy from the pub. Just thought you should know. For a moment, my chest tightened. Old habits kicked in, and I felt that familiar rush of jealousy and frustration. It was like a reflex wanting to prove myself to show Lisa I was better than him. But then I stopped. What good would that do? I knew where that path led back to the same cycle of chasing and proving. Was I really going to fall into that trap again? I sat down and took a deep breath. This wasn't about Lisa or that guy. This was about me deciding whether I wanted to hold on to my peace or let someone else's choices disrupt it. Diogenes would probably say that getting worked up over someone else's decisions was pointless. They had their own lives to live, and so did I. Instead of reacting, I put my phone away. I made breakfast, took a long shower, and decided to spend the day doing something for myself. I'd been thinking about taking a hike, something I hadn't done in months. It seemed like the perfect way to clear my head. The trail wasn't crowded, and I liked it that way. As I climbed higher, surrounded by trees and the quiet rustle of leaves, I felt that tightness in my chest start to loosen. Being out here reminded me of something simple yet important. I didn't need to be the center of anyone's world to feel whole. It was a revelation realizing that my value wasn't tied to whether Lisa chose me or not. I could still appreciate her as a person without needing her validation. Maybe that was real freedom, not detaching from people entirely, but letting go of the need to control how they saw me. At the top of the trail, I found a spot to sit and take in the view. The city looked so small from up here, tiny, distant, insignificant. It made me think about how much I used to get wrapped up in the drama of relationships, like it was the most important thing in the world. Up here, it seemed ridiculous. I pulled out my journal and wrote, "Real freedom is being at peace with yourself, no matter who comes or goes." For so long, I'd been looking for security in other people and their reactions, their attention, their approval. But that was a losing game. No one else could give me the stability I needed. It had to come from within. When I finally headed back down the trail, I felt lighter. I wasn't just telling myself to let go. I was actually doing it. I didn't need to text Lisa or ask Sam for updates. Whatever happened would happen, and I would be fine either way. Back at home, I took out my phone and typed a message to Sam. "Thanks for letting me know. I'm good. Just focusing on myself right now." He replied a minute later. "All right, man. Proud of you for handling it like that." I smiled, realizing that I wasn't just pretending to be okay. I genuinely was. That night, I made dinner and watched a documentary and just enjoyed the quiet. I wasn't waiting for a text. I wasn't planning my next move. I was just living, and that was enough. As I lay in bed, I thought about Diogenes again. He didn't care about people's opinions, not because he was indifferent, but because he knew that true contentment didn't come from outside. It came from knowing who you were and being okay with that, even if it meant living in a barrel and refusing to play by society's rules. I wasn't quite ready to live in a barrel, but I could see the appeal of not needing to impress anyone. I didn't need to be anyone else's idea of perfect. I could just be me, quiet, reflective, sometimes a little unsure, and that was enough. I fell asleep without worrying about tomorrow, without wondering if Lisa would text or if I'd bump into her and that guy again. It didn't matter. I was free from that weight, at least for tonight. The next morning, I woke up early. It wasn't planned, I just couldn't sleep in. The sun was just starting to peek through my window, casting long shadows on the floor. I made myself some coffee and sat by the window, letting the warmth of the cup seep into my hands. I didn't feel anxious or restless, just calm. It was a strange feeling, like I'd finally broken through something. Usually my mornings started with thoughts racing through my head, who I needed to text back, what I'd done wrong the day before, how I could fix things, but today it was quiet. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the need to check my phone immediately. I knew there wouldn't be a text from Lisa, and that was okay. I didn't need one to feel at peace. The thought didn't hurt, it just settled in soft and steady. Later that afternoon, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. I headed to the small park a few blocks from my place. It was quiet, just a few people scattered around. Joggers, dog walkers, a couple of kids playing on the swings. Then I saw her. Lisa sitting on one of the benches, her head tilted down at her phone. I almost turned around, but something told me to stay. I wasn't avoiding things anymore. I wasn't hiding from moments that made me uncomfortable. As I approached, she looked up and smiled, surprised but not unpleasantly. "Hey," I said. "Hey, Alex," she replied, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Fancy seeing you here," I shrugged. "Just needed some fresh air." She gestured to the spot next to her. "Want to sit?" I nodded and took a seat, leaving a respectful space between us. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just watching the world go by. "I've been thinking a lot lately," I started. She looked over, curious. "Yeah, about why I always felt like I had to be more than I am. Like I had to prove something to everyone, to you, to my friends, even to myself." She nodded slowly. "I get that. I've been there too." I took a breath, steadying myself. I guess I just realized that all that chasing, all that trying, it was more about filling some gap inside me than actually wanting something real. It's like I was addicted to the chase because it made me feel valuable. Lisa's expression softened. "You know, I think a lot of people do that without even realizing it. We just get so used to trying to be what others want." "Exactly," I said. "But I'm done with that. I'm trying to just be okay with being me, whether people like it or not." She smiled, a genuine, warm smile. That's a good place to be. I've been thinking about that too. I keep worrying that if I'm not entertaining or interesting, people will just move on. But maybe that's not my problem to solve. "It's not," I said simply. We sat there for a while, just talking about life, not trying to impress each other, not trying to read between the lines. It felt real. No expectations, no pressure. At some point, she looked at me and said, "You seem different." "Alex, calmer?" "I like it." I smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile that begged for validation. It was just a quiet acknowledgement that I was finally being myself. "I just got tired of chasing something I didn't even really want," I replied. She looked thoughtful. "Maybe we're both figuring it out, I guess. I thought I had to be everything to everyone to feel like I mattered." I nodded. "Yeah, but I think we already matter, even when we're just sitting here not doing anything special." Her eyes softened. "You're right. I guess I never thought of it like that." Eventually, Lisa stood up. "I should get going," she said. "Yeah, me too," I replied. We didn't make any vague promises to see each other again. We didn't exchange lingering glances. We just said goodbye. As she walked away, I didn't feel the usual rush of anxiety or regret. I didn't replay the conversation in my head, wondering if I'd said something wrong. I just let it be. On my way back home, I thought about how Diogenes would see this moment. He wouldn't care whether someone stayed or left. He would just exist in his own space, unbothered, free from the chains of expectation. Back at my apartment, I took out my journal and wrote down the realization that had been forming all day. True freedom isn't just being alone, it's being okay, no matter who comes or goes. I wasn't seeking solitude as an escape. I was choosing it as a way to reconnect with myself. I didn't need someone else to make me feel worthy or important. I just needed to feel that way on my own. The phone buzzed with a text from Sam. "Hey, want to grab a drink tonight?" I thought about it and texted back, "Sure, just not in the mood to impress anyone tonight, just hanging out." "That's the best way, man," he replied. That night, as I sat with Sam at the bar, I didn't look around for familiar faces or worry about who noticed me. I was just there, fully present, not performing. I knew it wasn't a permanent state. There would still be days when insecurity crept back in, moments when I'd feel that old urge to prove myself. But I also knew that I didn't have to act on it. Diogenes once said, "He is the richest who needs the least." I finally understood that. I wasn't wealthy in possessions or popularity, but I felt richer than ever because I wasn't bound by the need to be someone I wasn't. I looked at Sam and he gave me a knowing nod. We didn't need to say much. I wasn't chasing anymore. I wasn't trying to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. I was just being myself, and that was enough. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I'd found my own light, the kind that didn't depend on anyone else to keep burning. I wasn't chasing shadows or trying to catch something fleeting. I was here grounded, unchained,